we have to get to a party. So I'm going to keep this really short, 3 points in a poem. How's that? If politics is what power looks like, then this story of the feeding of the 5,000 is a political story. The writer begins with a very important statement. Jesus went across Lake Galilee, parenthetically, Lake Tiberias. So the lake was called Galilee, but Herod, the ruler of that place, of the cutting off John the Baptist's head fame, wants the Romans to feel comfortable in this land of the Jews, and so he builds a city called Tiberias on the lake. And the people who fished the lake were having to fish to feed that city. Not their own people, but the Romans. That city was everything they hated. They fished, they paid taxes on their fish, they gave their fish to Tiberias, and they got to eat the scraps. Jesus is doing something in the midst of that reality. Let's see what he's doing. It's okay to understand, by the way, this is point 2. It's okay to understand this miracle of Jesus multiplying the bread and the fish as actually taking the bread and the fish and multiplying them. Some miraculous way that we can't explain. It's okay to understand the story that way. But it makes a little more sense when you hear Jesus say, tell the people to sit down on the grass. Yeah, there's this little boy. He thought enough to bring something in his pocket for lunch. I'm guessing there might be stuff in other pockets. So how about y'all sit down? It's going to be cozy because we got 5,000 people in this space. That doesn't count the women and children who were probably along. And as they sat down and as their tummies growled, they pulled what they brought out of their pockets and they began to eat, and then they saw, oh, they forgot to bring something to eat. I think we got enough here to share. You need something to eat? You shouldn't wait until you get home. Here, share this bread. Just as great a miracle, right? Just as beautiful a miracle. And that's the way it goes. We have more than enough. Bread for the World says there's enough food to feed the world's population. The problem is not how much, the problem is distribution. And I would contend that it's more insidious than that, because distribution means are rampant, right? We can get stuff from America to a foreign country where there's a famine. I think the problem is isolation. I think that we've built communities that put people in pockets. The way the systems are structured requires that those poor people live in that neighborhood because those are the houses they can afford. It's a matter of not being face to face. It's a matter of not knowing those needs intimately, not having someone hungry sitting right next to us. Some say that the biggest issue in our world is not race, but class. It just happens to be that people of a certain race are mostly in a certain class. For the sake of our story, the fact that all are fed, and not just bread, but also fish, and that there are leftovers, flies in the face of what Rome has done to the people. Some historians talk about bread in circuses. If we can keep these people distracted, think Roman Colosseum, think major league sports, think shopping, think social media on these little devices, if we can just keep these people distracted and throw them a crust of bread, they'll be happy. This feast that Jesus spreads for the people flies in the face of that. If we can sit people down together, we can create a feast of abundance. We don't need to live on crusts of bread. We can live on fish and bread. Point 2.5. Notice that nothing was there came from the outside. It was all there. The little boy had what was needed. It's true among us. There is nothing we need that isn't here. Maybe a smile, maybe a warm handshake, maybe a hug, maybe a contribution that supplies something that's needed beyond those things. Maybe a phone call. Hey, would you like a cup of tea? Seems like maybe you're sad about that. I wonder if you'd like to have a chat or go for a walk. What we have is here. Point 3. Jesus cared about the leftovers. I was blown away when I read Jan Richardson's commentary on this text this week. I never thought about the leftovers. I mean, yeah, there are 12 baskets, and that represents the 12 tribes of Israel, but there's something more special here than the number 12. It's the leftovers. It's the crumbs that happen when you break the bread that fall to the floor. Jesus cares about the crumbs, what's left over, what's not been eaten. He gathers it all up. It's like he's preparing for the next feast. It's like he has the future in mind. When there's hunger, here's the food. I think we've all experienced that feeling of being left over, outcast, last one picked for the team, not fitting in because of who we are, who we love, things we want to do with our lives. Jesus cares about the leftovers, the disenfranchised, the outcasts, the ones who don't fit in. And I think you know that because that's why your church is full, right? Because you've said leftovers are welcome here. It's like the island of the misfit toys, right? All are welcome here. We all have gifts to offer. Someone had this big idea about the block party at Berry Field. 42 people stepped up to volunteer. 42 people are over there. Gifts from all over the place, within our community and beyond, saying, here, I can offer this, I've got that. It's going to be a great party, and it flies in the face of everything that our culture is about. Selfishness, me first, churches that are competitive with one another, churches that take care of their own. Here we are, out there in the public square, offering what we have. Mostly a big party. Hope y'all will be there. When I originally began thinking about this, Stacey Abrams' book, Now is the Time, came to mind. She talks about the various ways that we can work in a political sense to change our world, to fight for justice. She talks about allies, the people who walk with others, who may have some trepidation on their walk. And then she talks about the advocates, the people who don't have a voice, the people who need someone to say for them what is so. And then this is my favorite. She talks about the agitators, the ones who wake up the powers so that they can see what is needed. We're all important in creating a future where all thrive. We are busy creating the miracle of community where one has a need and another meets it. The way forward is the way of beloved community. I'm going to end with a poem by Jan Richardson, this powerful poem called Blessing the Fragments. Cup your hands together, and you will see the shape this blessing wants to take. Basket, bowl, vessel. It cannot help but hold itself open to welcome what comes. This blessing knows the secret of the fragments that find their way into its keeping, the wholeness that may hide in what has been left behind, the persistence of plenty where there seemed only lack. Look into the hollow of your hands and ask what wants to be gathered there. What abundance waits among the scraps that come to you? What feast will offer itself from the fragments that remain? May we be people who welcome the fragments. Amen? Amen.